Hello, hello. Good Friday, everybody. Am I on? It's always the same thing. Am I on? I'm never sure if I'm on. How do I sound? I'll wait for somebody, my buddy Scott Jernigan, to text me and say, you sound great. Oh, goodness. All right. So anyway, welcome to the Mike Meyers Coronavirus Ask Me Anything. The function of this Ask Me Anything, sorry, is an opportunity for those of us who are isolated by coronavirus to have the opportunity to continue our studies for CompTIA certifications, in particular IT Fundamentals, A+, Net+, and Security+. Now we can go outside that, but that's really where our super skills are, so we tend to want to stay within that group. So the goal of this Ask Me Anything is that you ask me questions, okay? So right here on the live chat, we've got lots of questions that have some that can be showing up, and then I will answer the questions. Now, I understand that sometimes questions can be a little bit more complicated, and if that's the case, here's my contact information. And what I want you to do is that if you have questions that might need some development, or if you're not sure, just send me an email. That's both my work and my personal email addresses. Send me an email and we'll talk about them. So that's never a problem, and I'm always glad to do that. Or feel free to just ask them here. Completely up to you. If you're a gamer, I'm Senor Pepe, although I got to be honest, I've not been gaming too much lately. This is our office number, which nobody's in our office right now, but it does forward. If you're in an absolute pain to get a hold of me, the screeners will get there. But to be honest with you, most of the time, just send me an email. I check my email like 47 times a day, and I'll probably just send you my cell number so you can talk to me. And when in doubt, just type in DesWeds. I'm DesWeds at everything. So today is, it's Friday, so there's going to be some giveaways for sure. Get all these scary messages. I hope I'm not buffering or anything. So for today, we will have some giveaways for sure. We're probably going to be looking at like Amazon gift cards because, to be honest with you, especially for you guys overseas, it's getting harder and harder for us to do some stuff, but we're going to try. So keep fingers crossed there. Also, we do have some follow-up questions from Wednesday I want to go over, but I do have a couple of interesting things that have popped up, and I also have a couple of smaller questions that I want to bring up real quick. And congratulations, Nick L. You took your A+ online today. It was a bit glitchy. My laptop froze up and I had to reboot, and then I had to wait for a call from the examiner to call me, but we got it in the end. Good. See, I'm actually glad to hear stuff like that, Nick, because it's when everything works great, fine. I'm glad that everything's fine there, but to hear like you had a situation where you had to, oh, hi Geraldine, I see you. I'm always glad to see when things go wrong and how they're handled. So Nick, that's extremely good information. So thank you very much for that. All right, so where do we start today? Some interesting email. So this is I get a variation of this question all the time. So this email I got at 12:02 a.m., so pretty much guarantee I got a lot of folks in India who like me, and I'm always glad to talk to them, but boy, that time shift's a booger. I hope you're doing well in these strange times. I bought your A+, going through them, fantastic, yay. But now this person is going through the Network Plus, and he's looking at the Network Plus, and he's like, well, wait a minute. So Network Plus, that curriculum came out in 2018. Well, that is, so if it's redone every 3 years, Mike, should I be worried? Well, a couple of things to say about that. Number one, whenever we're in a situation where we've got a new test version coming out, there's going to be a minimum of 3, but it's usually like 6 months or sometimes even longer like that, overlap where you can take either exam. And in my opinion, you always want to take the older exam, if at all possible. The older exam's been out for 3 years, maybe a little over 3 years. We have experience with it. We've got some, we've been talking about the exam. We've been able to tweak videos, add errata to books, that kind of a thing. And nobody cares what version of a test you take. Not really. You got an A+, great. Okay, let's move on. You got an F+, great, move on. What people are often going to be interested in is that you're always going for some cert or another. So you always want to have, it's a stack of those things is the goal. So, however, if you are in a window where you can see a new exam coming, and you should always check, this person is actually being very smart to take the time and just verify, how long is the test. We've heard nothing from CompTIA about an updated Network Plus, which is not surprising. We have heard about an updated Security Plus, which should be coming out sometime early next year, first quarter of 2021. But nothing on Net Plus. So good for this person for contacting me. And but the answer is until we know anything, we can't do anything about it. All right, but if you are in a situation where there's another test is coming online, you're going to have to make your own personal decision. Can you take the old test in a timely basis? If you can take the old test in a timely basis, then go for it. This is particularly true with A+, because it's 2 exams, and you got to pass both of the exams. If you pass, say, the 1001 exam, okay, and then you fiddle fart around, and then a new, whatever the next one, the 1101, 1102, whatever they're going to call the next one. This is years from now, folks. But the old test retires and the new test comes on, you have to retake both. You can't just say, I got the 901, can I take the 1002? Nope, you got to take them both. So as long as you can, in a timely basis, get that first set of, the first test done and get your cert, great. But if there's a question mark, if you're not sure, then you probably want to go with the later exam. It's a matter of personal choice. Oh, I also get certs like this. Mike, my certificate looks good, but they spelt my name wrong. So have CompTIA change it. I have no control on these things. The other thing that's really important is that if you're going for CompTIA certs, you really need to get a CompTIA ID. So you just go over to CompTIA.org and you log in, you get a CompTIA ID. Then whenever you're taking any CompTIA exam, then you can just go in and add that CompTIA ID, and then they won't even ask for your name or address or anything. Once they type in that CompTIA ID, they'll show it, they'll look at it. Are there any updates to your address or phone number or anything like that? Nope, 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 nope. Great. By doing that, you allow CompTIA to keep track, because that can be handy for a lot of stuff. Yeah, they dump you with marketing information, but there's also some handy things. Like, for example, on Wednesday, we had a question about CompTIA stackable certifications. So let's take a quick look at that. Dominic, you passed your PenTest Plus. Way to go, brother. Okay, hang on a minute. So let's take a look at stackable certifications. Bear with me just a minute. Okay, so if we take a look here, these are the stackable certifications. Now, the whole idea behind a certification is that, like, if you take the A+ and the Net Plus, you become a CompTIA IT Operations Specialist. Ta-da! Or if you take A+ and Linux Plus, you become the CompTIA System Support Specialist. So all these different combinations, and then especially with the security, you get these stackable certifications. So a stackable certification is nothing more than something that CompTIA, if you take 2 certs, and if you take the test and you use your CompTIA ID on all these, it happens automatically. Just boom, automatically. If you don't use your CompTIA ID, and a lot of people don't, which is unfortunate, but if you don't, then you're going to have to contact CompTIA and you got to put all these together. Then they're going to give you an ID, and then it'll all be organized under that one thing. So you definitely want to try very, very hard to take all CompTIA exams using a CompTIA ID. You don't have to pass any certs to get a CompTIA ID. You can just get it as a studier. So it is there for you. So these stackable certs, now you're going to get my opinion. I don't see a lot of noise on them, to be honest with you. A lot of people think that I am CompTIA. I am not CompTIA. I'm just one of many, many training companies out there that provide training for the Computing Technology Industry Association, CompTIA's certification exams. A lot of people think I'm a CompTIA fanboy. I'm not a huge fan of CompTIA. I do believe in what they do. I believe that CompTIA is really the only kit on the block, especially for quality entry-level certs. I wish there was competition out there. There isn't. But I'm the first one to yell at these guys, trust me. And I'm not smelling a lot of noise on these stackable certs. By saying noise, am I hearing people talk about it looking for work? Am I hearing people talk about it looking to hire people? Am I seeing, articles on like the 10 most important certifications for 2020? I don't see them. And when I don't see them, I don't get excited. People are always like, Mike, how come you don't write a Server Plus book? Because it has no traction. And sorry, CompTIA, I don't think it's a bad cert. It's just, it's not going to get people jobs as far as I can tell. And I end up selling 23 books. It's like, so no sizzle. How's that for the fancy word? So anyway, the stackable certs look to be fairly automatic. And a lot of these, again, let's go back and look at these together. A lot of these are interesting. I mean, for example, obviously, A+, Net+, which so many people take anyway. Why not have this CIOS? Or A+, Linux Plus, interesting combination. I'm not saying no to it. But then you'll see like Cloud Plus and Server Plus, Net Plus and Linux Plus. I'm not saying that's a bad combination there. But a lot of these, all I'm trying to say is that for a lot of us, especially early on in your certification career, you're probably going to be taking combinations of CompTIA anyway, so enjoy. And you get these stackable certs on top of it. Well, CompTIA is kind of notorious about changing things a lot. I think a lot of certification bodies are. Both Microsoft and Cisco right now are a mess certification-wise. But who knows? Maybe they'll turn into a thing. The nice part is you're probably pursuing certain certifications anyway. So if it comes in, you get it automatically. You get a little extra thing to put at the bottom of your resume. Have fun. Okay. I had a question about check disc, but I'm going to save that one. Let me double check, see if we have any burning questions here before I go too far in. Dr. Quinn, good to see you, man. Does everybody like my white shirt? My buddy Nancy told me I need to wear a white shirt. I always thought I looked better in black, right? When you're a little heavy, wear black, wear layers, but whatever. So here you go, Nancy. I'm wearing my Giabara. So how do I look? Okay. Dominic did pass the PenTest. Dominic, you're like a machine, dude. Like, how many certifications in a row have you taken? Like this week. You're amazing. Samuel Afenga. Is there any security considerations? Why is an environment with a mixture of Cisco and non-Cisco devices and only CDP is used? I'm going to have to think about that. There's lots of security considerations. I'm going to have to pass on that one, Samuel. Unless somebody can pull up. I think I know what you mean by CDP, but I'm not positive, and I don't want to start saying things and looking dumb. Dominic Mallow. Should I try to take CYSA Plus before October or wait until next year when there's more material for the new version? Dominic, we had a course ready to go before the virus pretty much shut us down. It's pretty hard to get system matter experts to come and stand in front of a camera when everybody's worried about getting sick. So as soon as the ball begins to roll again, and I have no answer for that, I really have no control on that, we will be working on a new CYSA Plus. But again, when a cert comes out at the very beginning, you got to remember, nobody knows anything about the cert other than the objectives. The only thing I get as a creator of training material is I get to look at the objectives a lot earlier than you do before they come out. That's it. And so there's lots of speculation. CompTIA does a pretty good job on objectives so that it's pretty easy to answer these things properly, but a lot of times then some objective will come out and This used to be a much worse of a problem than it is today. An objective would come out and, I'd write blah, blah, blah about, underwater basket weaving for X plus, and which is wrong. It's just wrong. It's like, wait a minute, man, where are you guys coming from? CompTIA is also somewhat notorious for, they have these glossary terms. If you haven't looked at CompTIA objectives, you really need to. Go to CompTIA.org, www.comptia.org, and just look up the objectives for any cert. And they're PDFs, and so they have all the objectives. They're usually 4, 5, 6 major objectives broken down into level 2s and level 3s, so it goes into a lot of detail. It's usually about 10, 15 pages in outline format. But then you're going to have at the very end, you're going to have these glossary of terms. And CompTIA, so they're not an objective, but they're terms. So what's CompTIA going to do with them? So it's always fascinating for us to try to guesstimate which glossary terms may or may not be showing up. CompTIA is notorious for leaving very obsolete terms in their glossaries. I'm sure they do it on purpose. I hope they're doing it on purpose, but we'll see. Yeah, Dominic, that's the same answer with Linux Plus. So the answer is no, we will not have one soon. But if you keep yelling at me, you might soften me up. Tom Jeffrey, hi Mike, I'm finishing up PC. Oh, this is what with the Ryzen 3700X? Is all thermal paste the same? It is to me, unless you're like really getting overclocking. And if you bought the OEM version of the Ryzen, it probably came, if you're going to use the OEM fan, it's got thermal dope on the fan itself. But, I don't go too nuts on the dope. Oh, there, you said it. There's some on the cooler pre-applied, but I've been told not to use it. Tom, I use it all the time when I'm using OEM fans, and I've never had a problem. I'm not an overclocker anymore, so back when I could take an old Celeron and triple its speed, yeah, then I was an overclocker. But now when you're talking about taking something from 3.2 to 3.5 gigahertz, I got better things to do. I have more fun playing with the RGB settings. I think half the reason I've been buying AMD motherboards is just all the pretty lights. Yay! I have so much fun with the lights. Al Mulford, when am I coming back for a visit? As soon as you tell me we can catch some fish there. Al Mulford lives in Rockport, Texas. Good fishing there. Although the last time Al and I went out fishing, we did not do well. We got lots of catfish. We call them hardheads down here in Texas. Edward Phoebe, you say there's no competition. You say there's no competition on entry-level certs. I don't feel that there is. Do you have an opinion on the Google IT certs? I looked at them a couple of times and I was just wildly unimpressed. And again, the big thing here, Edward, is sizzle. I talk to people who are looking to hire folks. I'm looking out there. What are the big certs? And nobody's saying anything really good about it. I think they're free, right? Which is good. And again, I'm not against that. Everybody's like, oh, Mike doesn't want that because he'll run him out of business. I guarantee it won't. I want to get you guys certified on anything that'll make you be a good tech. And the Google certs I'm aware of are more user level. They're more towards IT fundamentals, in my opinion. Maybe I need to look again. Anthony Cole, I've been looking for IT positions lately. You have the A+, but I honestly never heard of stackable certs. Yeah, Anthony, I'm supposed to know this stuff off the top of my head. I think Scott Jernigan had brought them up once to me sometime in the past, and then I didn't look. Jake the Plug, can you name a few popular help desk companies for entry-level IT? Gosh, Amazon, eBay, and I'm thinking here in the States. There's a lot out there. Yeah. I'm 1 semester away from my degree and 2 months away from my Security Plus exam, but I need to find something sooner with everything. Yeah, Jake, get out there, man. Hey, Nancy. Yep, how do you like my white shirt? Yeah, I'm so pretty. I look like I'm about, welcome to Jurassic Park. God, I do. I'm looking at myself in the, maybe I changed the glasses. What was that actor's name? I don't remember anymore. Come on, I need the hat. Oh, I got one over there. I don't want to reach for it because then you'd see me in my yoga pants. PvP, boy, you're hilarious. Geraldine. Hi, Scott. Scott? Okay, I think looks like Scott's got that one. Oh, also, listen, before we get too more involved, just because you guys are kind enough to show up today, we are offering 50% off of our super bundles and all of our practice questions. So all you have to do is go to www.totalsem.com and order either the super bundles, which put together all the practice questions and sims and such, and or just the practice questions themselves. And when you're buying them, type in MMLive7 and you get it all for half off. Crazy discounts, huh? Absolutely. I need a sip of Diet Coke. David Attenborough, that's who it is, Dave Rush. Thank you. I totally did not remember that actor. Yes, Andy STL, there was the deal. I just said it. Probably if Scott Jernigan's still on there, he can type that in again for me, but I can bring it back up one more time. That's right, half off. All right, next question. Debbie Strouch. Hi, Mike. On A+ exam, will AFP, Apple Filing Protocol, the old, or Bonjour protocol be on the exam? Bonjour would probably be on the exam. Plus, is the Bonjour port number also 548? I don't remember. Here we go. I'm going to Google port 548. There's a bazillion websites that just give you all the port numbers. No. 548 seems to be the old Apple filing protocol over TCP. And yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. I think we're okay there. Jake, oh, that's his name. Andre, we were wondering where you were, young man. Geraldine Berta, do I need to memorize the schematic with a typical chipset chores for... No, that is way too specific, Geraldine. Don't do that. Understand conceptually what a chipset is for. Understand conceptually that chipsets have numbers and that they tend to be associated with certain CPUs. That's it. I mean, most of the time, when you're buying a new system, you've already been looking at chipsets because there's certain features that might be interesting. Like if a new type of RAM comes out, that's always a big one. New version of USB. Does a new version of NVMe, something like that's coming out that kind of interests you. And then you tend to look at what chipsets support that. And then you determine what motherboards have that chipset. And that's usually how I buy my motherboards. I usually buy the chipset before I buy the CPU. I'll have some feel for it, and I'm very into AMD Ryzens right now, so I'm going to be leaning more towards the AMD right now. But yeah, isn't that interesting? That's usually, I also look at the motherboard and I look at little things. Do I need more than one PCIe 16-lane slot? That's a big issue. If it's a full-size ATX, you know, what box am I going to put it in? I'm a mini tower fanatic because I don't use that much in terms of storage. I keep one tower box around for storage if I want to, you know, put 4 or 5 SATA drives in there or something like that. But What else do I think about? How many M.2 slots and verifying that they're NVMe? How many Ethernet ports? I'm a 2 Ethernet port kind of guy. I like that. Onboard graphics versus non-onboard graphics. I'm not going to say it would stop me if it had onboard graphics, but I put on my own video card in almost everything, so that would be a big criteria. That'd be some of the big things. But yeah, Geraldine, that's way too specific. Just understand conceptually what a chipset is, and you're good. Samuel, is it possible to renew one's Security Plus as opposed to going forward with CompTIA PenTest? Sure. Yeah, you can. Any CompTIA exam, you can just retake every 3 years, and yeah, you can just renew them. Also, do keep in mind that one of the big things about renewals is that you get these continuing education units for all kinds of stuff. Attending a conference, not taking Mike Meyers courses, unfortunately. I wish they'd do that. That'd be sweet. But you would be surprised how many different things qualify for continuing education. So you don't really have to sit down and retake exams that often. Also, a lot of times taking a more advanced exam will refresh your more basic exams. So CompTIA has a wonderful page it's at www.comptia.org, and just look up continuing education units. There's lots of ways to refresh your certs without just sitting down and retaking them every time. Pity that's not on the A+, yeah. Terrence Dandles, send me an email, Mike. Terrence, you send me an email, brother. There, you have to be the initiator. Just send me an email at either one of those addresses. And off we go. What else do we have? Yeah, thanks, Scott. The super bundles, videos, plus practice tests, plus sims. Got it. Do codes work on Udemy too? No, sir. These are exclusively to the Total Seminar site. Nick S. Hey, Mike, could you please go into subnet mask for a while? I've watched your Net Plus vids and read something online. Still, I couldn't get it. Is it like a nomenclature or? All right. Sure. Let's talk about subnet mask for a minute. It's a good question. The problem with TCP/IP, it's not really a problem, it's a feature, is that TCP/IP really isn't necessary in little local area networks. If you go back to the old days of networking, before there was an internet, but it was weird and nobody talked about it. When you looked at products that had names like NetWare and the early versions of Windows for Workgroups and Apple Filing Protocol, Apple Talk, all of these old protocols, they didn't use IP addresses. They would just broadcast, and they would use the MAC addresses. It's so interesting. We talk about IP addresses all the time, but we forget that every IP packet on Earth is usually encapsulated in an Ethernet packet. And it's as things go around through the internet, they go into a router, the router strips off the Ethernet stuff, looks at it, decides which port it goes out, forwards it out another port, but before it forwards it out, it puts more Ethernet stuff, or if it's sending it out on a cable network, cable modems, it's going to put DOSIS information. If it's going to go out on a wireless network, it gets 802.11 information. The IP packet itself tends to stay the same, but we're always putting stuff on it to get it from one machine to the next. The only time IP packets exist without something encapsulating them is when they're inside the host that's sending it or receiving it, or if they're in a router. Other than that, you'll never find an IP packet out in the wild without that information. So let's go back to your little computer here, okay, Nick? So you got this little computer right here, all right? And this little computer wants to go way out on the internet someplace and talk to them. So you have a bunch of computers in your local area network, right? And they all probably have addresses like 192, 168, 1 dot something, right? And If you're just going to be talking on your local area network, all you have to do, you don't have to talk to the router. If you're just talking to another computer on your network, that's kind of like a local call, right? And that way, you don't have to talk to the router. So if it's a local call, you do a special command called ARP. Let's see if I can do an ARP for you real quick. Yeah, we're going to talk about check this. That's what I had it all up for. But let's do, so if you do ARP by itself, just get a bunch of commands. Let's do ARP space -A. All right. So what you're looking at here is the ARP command resolves IP addresses to Ethernet addresses. You see that? So these static ones are kind of preset in here already. And then the dynamic ones are the ones that can change. The whole idea behind ARP is that you can't just send an IP packet, whether it's going across the universe or across the room to a printer. You can't send that packet out without the Ethernet information on top of it, right? So you got this IP packet. If it's a local address, you send out an ARP. That thing responds back with its Ethernet MAC address. You store the MAC address in that ARP cache, which we just saw, and then you go ahead and send it. You use the ARP cache in case you want to send more later. You don't want to just keep ARPing all the time, right? So you keep it in the cache. It lasts for a while. But that's only if it's a local call. Now, if it's a long distance call, that means it's going to have to go out through your gateway router, right? I mean, that's what the router's there for. It connects you to the internet. So now, if it's a long distance call, it's just going to ARP for the gateway router, or if you're using like Windows 10 here, that's a static entry. It's stuck in there all the time, so you don't have to ARP for it. Not very often. And when it makes the Ethernet frame, it's not going to change anything in the IP packets. The IP address to somewhere in Google, and the IP address, your local computer. But the Ethernet address, the destination Ethernet address, is going to be the MAC address for your router. Understand? And then the source MAC address will be your system's MAC address. And that's just to get it to your local router. Your router's going to strip all that stuff off and then send it forward, put on whatever he needs to for the next step. So you need something in your settings that allows your computer to go, oh, here's a packet. Is this a local call and I'll just ARP? Or is this a long distance call and I need to send a Ethernet frame directly to my gateway router? That's what a subnet mask is. The subnet mask simply allows individual hosts to determine on a per packet basis whether it's a local call, because if it's a local call, it's going to match up where all the ones are, right? And if it's a long distance call, it's not going to match up where all the 1s, 255s, I hate using that word. And that's really all it does. Local versus long distance. I hope that helps. If it's not good enough, Nick, go ahead and ask me more questions right now. We can develop this, or you can send me an email directly to me with more detailed questions, and I will be more than glad to answer that in more detail for you. I am so dehydrated today. No, I wasn't doing anything. I've been sticking to my diet, working out, doing my yoga. It's really frustrating. I should have been losing like 1 million pounds by now. Instead, I get weird dimples on my pushing 60-year-old body. Yeah, Mike Trainer's like, hey, Mike, don't worry about it. I want to be, hey. All right, we're working on it. So I hope that helped a little bit, Nick S. Mm-hmm. Tom Jeffrey, cheers, Mike. Cheers. Are you from Great Britain? We'll see what happens in terms of after the coronavirus. I mean, it just really boils down to the fact that we get busy people, and you'd be surprised the amount of time that these online things take. It's a lot more than just when I'm talking with you. So we're going to do this for a minimum of 30 more days. We will certainly have some kind of something, but I think when everything cools down, you might want to be mentally prepared for like a weekly thing. I ain't saying nothing yet. We'll just see how it plays out. Just reading questions. There's PvP boy. I remember studying computer science and we went into logic gates. I felt it went too far. Well, PvP boy, the problem is that everybody has what I call their black box. As a nerd, it doesn't have to be a computer nerd. It could be a nerd of any technology. You're always motivated to drill down and drill down and drill down and drill down. And there's a certain point when you drill down and you open the next box of learning that you've gone, as like we say here in Texas, you're down in the gators. And it is technology that either is not going to help you get a job, it's not pertinent to the industry that you're in, it's boring, stuff like that. And, that is a common thing. Like a lot of people, when you see that whole man in box analogy that I do in A+, I mean, that was in there because that's where most people's black box are, is the, within the CPU. Now, I like to motivate people, and once you start understanding pipelining and hyper-threading and stuff like that, then it becomes interesting to open the box. And, and that's where we go from man in box to men in box, It's all adult learning theory stuff. I panic constantly about how I'm teaching you guys stuff. If you guys ever get a chance, there is an incredible YouTube video. And it's a YouTube video from 1937. And the whole video is, how does an automobile differential work? You know that thing in the back where you hook your axles to, the differential? So how does a car which is turning one crank make this differential work? And it's a 9-minute video, and be honest with you, like the first 2 minutes are watching these motorcycles go around. So it's a really, really short video. If you ever get a chance, watch it. To me, it's the greatest technology training video that has ever been made, because it starts very simply on the concept of what a differential is and then builds and builds without losing you. And I was like, oh, if I could ever make a video that perfect, I would be complete. Pavel Slikla. Hello, when is update planned on Udemy? In a few months. We should be out at or before the time the actual 601 exam comes out. We will not have a product before the exam comes out. The exam doesn't seem to be coming out before first quarter of 2021, and we'll work with that. Scott Jernigan, please tell me if I'm right on that date. I'm pretty sure I am. Dr. Quinn, don't mean to poke fun at you, but, oh, here comes the but. Has anybody ever told you you look like Colonel Sanders? Yes, like daily. I wish I had Colonel Sanders' hair. Jeff Schultz, the first time I took all 3 of your practice tests, scored in the 60s. For each may have scored in the 90s. Should I be concerned about being in the 60s the first time I take the real exam? No. Jeff, you're going to have to ask yourself, why were you scoring so low? Usually if you go from a very low score and then pop up to a high score, most of the time that's just telling me you're paying better attention to your testing, or you're taking advantage of standard multiple choice testing skill sets, things like that. If you're doing it in the 90s, you're probably ready to take the test. Just remember a couple things on the test. Number one, every CompTIA exam comes with beta questions. Folks, this is all documented. Every time you sit down and take a CompTIA exam and all that stuff, those 3 pages of goo that you don't read through, and you have time. You actually didn't start the test after you've read that. They tell you this stuff. One of the things they tell you is that they have beta questions. They are ungraded questions. And CompTIA is notorious about putting them right at the beginning of the exam. Now, I need to be careful here, because usually the practical questions, I never remember the proper terminology. Scott's saying November or December of 2020, so in about 6 months. But we're both guessing, so don't hold us to that. Anyway, the practical questions, those are always at the beginning of a test. So the practicals are always right at the very beginning, which is also something you need to watch out for. Too many people spend way too much time on the practical questions. Watch your timing and, spend a few minutes on the practical questions, but if it's not coming quick, skip them and do the regular questions. Okay, so you get to the practicals, you're going to have 2, 3, up to maybe 6 practical questions, and now you get into the multiple choice type questions. That's where those beta questions show up. And I'm convinced CompTIA does this to jack with you, because here's somebody who's already got test anxiety, right? And they've probably been burning through the practical questions. They're a little frazzled. So you jump into the multiple choice, and all of a sudden, here are questions that you have never heard of. I mean, they might use words that you kind of sort of know, and you're like, oh my God, Mike Meyers' study materials are terrible. I've never heard of this stuff. I want my money back, and I'm going to freak out, and I'm going to fail the exam because they're beta questions. Don't panic. They're ungraded. And they're probably questions that are way out there in right field. So don't freak out. Try to answer them as best you can, of course. But there's usually 2 or 3 of these questions, and they're right after the practicals. So that's the other thing that I want people to really, really worry about. And so those are the type of things that I would be thinking about, Jeff. The other thing I'd be worried about, Jeff, is that you're running through the same questions over and over, and you've got the questions memorized. This is why I often tell people that it's great that you buy my practice questions. Thank you. But I also tell people you should probably buy another source of practice questions, because practice questions get a voice to them, and you'll start practicing just pounding the same test bank. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not copy CompTIA questions. Not only is it morally reprehensible, but it's illegal, and there is precedent for CompTIA going after people doing this. Now, if you see a question on my practice questions that says 2 + 2 = whatever, you better be checking what 2 + 3 = and you get the idea? So I get close, but I don't copy the question. So people they rattle through these questions, and they'll sit there and go, oh, I've seen this question. I saw it on Mike's practice one, because the answer's C, and you click on C, but you didn't read the question because it ain't 2 + 2, it's 2 + 3, and you didn't pay a little attention to something, and you get the question wrong. So just think about these things while you're practicing. Maybe you're just good. Andre, what would be the minimum AMD CPU to build a virtualization PC? God, almost any AMD I'm not worried about the CPU for virtualization. I worry about the amount of RAM. To me, when you say to build virtualization, so are you talking about like just practicing virtualization on your own and using things like, Hyper-V or VirtualBox or something like that? You can probably get away with 16 gigabytes. I doubt you'd be running more than maybe 3 VMs at a time. But you'd probably be okay. A real VM machine, like a server VM machine. I wish Michael Smyer was online right now. We have a big, we use VMware, a purchased and expensive copy of, it's called ESX. ESX is their Type 1 hypervisor put onto a Dell Pizza box. Man, I could swear that thing has, I keep wanting to say 128 gigs of RAM. That's probably too high. It's probably 64, but there's a lot in there. Let me see if Michael responded by any chance. No. Okay. So I really wouldn't be thinking about the CPU. I mean, I'd want a, recent generation Ryzen, but other than that, RAM, man. Lots of RAM. And the other thing's cool for virtual machines, even if you're just practicing, is to have more than one physical NIC. Because it's really kind of cool where you'll set up one network and you have them bridge into one NIC, and then you set up another network, have them bridge into that, and you just play. It's fun. So having more than one physical NIC is also a fun thing to have. Ba-ba-ba-ba. So Anthony, when you say you're having trouble because you have no experience yet, I'd almost like to talk about this to you on a more personal basis. I always get a little frustrated with this. The industry needs entry-level techs, and it needs tons of them, you don't see the word entry-level job used very often. Or if they do, they're kind of, weird about it. Usually they'll say things like 1 to 3 years experience. Look, if you're going to go look at every resume and you're going to go, well, I don't have the experience, I can't even apply for that job. Apply for the job, okay? Use personal experience, use charitable experience, use school experience. Use that kind of stuff as experience. Don't lie, and you don't have to lie. But don't be afraid to throw stuff in like that to show that you do have experience. And I think a lot of these, especially with the more entry-level jobs, because it's such a cattle call for people, that anything they can do to make less brave people apply, they're going to go for. There's never a perfect candidate with all the perfect things that anybody's looking for. You know, they all want a college degree. They all want 1 to 3 years experience. Let me assure you when I tell you that a lot of those jobs where they want a college degree, they take somebody with some certs. A lot of times where they take somebody who has 1 to 3 years experience, they take somebody with 0 professional experience. Just apply. You know, you're going to get rejection. It's okay. Vimal, you're late. We've had fun without you. I try to get to the scroller is always such a challenge here. Where is it? Samuel, is the Cloud Plus going to become a big deal for government jobs related to the cloud? Yeah, I don't know, Samuel. Cloud Plus has been around for a while. I would think that if you're going for cloud, you would go straight into some of the like Amazon cloud stuff or the Microsoft cloud stuff. I have not seen a ton of sizzle on Cloud Plus. Jay, Kevin, you make so many requests that the server denies service. I'm going to gamble, Kevin, that you got an answer for distributed. The only thing I would add from what these guys said, Kevin Lopez asked, how does DDoS work? Okay, that's actually not a bad question. Distributed denial of service attack. So a denial of service attack, not a distributed, just a old school denial of service attack is when you get a certain number of computers providing usually malformed HTTP or HTTPS requests, because it's not just a bunch of computers hitting one server. It's a bunch of computers that are hitting one server, but they're talking to it in ways that the server has to think about it a little bit. And so that's where a lot of the old school denial of service. Distributed just means that there are a gazillion computers all doing this. The classic zombified computers that are all hitting it from all over the world. And but that, along with what the other guys said, and I think we've got a good answer for you. Okay, reading questions. J. Von Andion. LOL, I understand your worries with your weight. Oh yeah, I'm worried. It's frustrating. I got to tell you though, man, like I'm benching almost 200 pounds now, so that feels pretty good. I've always been strong. And the other thing, the yoga is amazing. Guys, I was the most anti-yoga. That was Freudian. I was like anti-yoga, you know, and everybody's taking yoga. So, did you find your chakras and all this stuff? I got to tell you, it's changed me. I may not buy into all the Middle Eastern philosophy stuff, but in terms of, you know, just being able to move again and, you know, getting my range of motion back, and like there's stuff you don't think about. I mean, how many people actually think about how loose your ankles are? I never did. You know, I'm always thinking about hamstrings and stuff like that. But anyway, this yoga. Man, I got to tell you, this gal who teaches the yoga class, she's here in Houston. We do Zoom meetings because they're Corona. But this lady, I told her, I go, you need to do yoga for the decrepit because it's absolutely amazing. I mean, you know, we're just now, after almost over 2 months, just now getting to like downward facing dog. I mean, that's how basic this yoga is. But I got to tell you, I'm impressed with yoga. It's, or at least this lady's version of yoga. I'm working on it, Javon. I'm working on it. Jake the Plug. Jake the Plug? Oh, there, you're just helping with the DDoS. Thank you, sir. Adam Topher. Hey, Adam. I'm enjoying the A-plus class so far and getting ready to take the first test. Good luck. Love how you move around the stickers behind you. Like the arcane image from WoW. Yeah, I traditionally always played an arcane human mage. And yeah, my WoW days are almost certainly over. Sorry, Scott Jernigan. I actually went back to WoW Classic, and I remembered why I quit WoW, because it was like grinding. Bill Foskett, watching your Security Plus series right now. The subject is so boring. What? But your delivery is the only thing that makes it interesting. Yeah, look, Bill, all versions of IT in certain places are boring. You know, and so for me, it was a big deal to try to come up with a way to teach anything. And it's not just my videos. It's my books. My books are full of Easter eggs and crazy stuff. My cell phone numbers in every one of my books and stupid jokes that people don't get. And every now and then. So I try to make it unboring. And Bill, literally, that's the nicest compliment you could give me. Thank you, because I try really, really hard. Although I got to tell you, governance and risk management is a big deal. And the people, this is always frustrating for me, because I thought this way, because I've always been a screwdriver tech. And that is, all right, I'm going to get into IT security, whatever that is. So to me, in my brain, IT security meant, well, I make firewalls and I set up intrusion protection systems and stuff like that. The people who actually turn the screwdrivers in an enterprise are usually the least important parts of your whole IT security infrastructure. So it's the people who are up there a little bit, who understand things like, risk management, NIST risk management frameworks and stuff like that, are the really important part. Everybody down there who's actually doing the fixes, they're just like the infantry, And yeah, if you want to be successful, in my opinion, in IT security, you're going to work hard to get into the governance of things right away and understanding things like risk management, which is why I put it at the beginning of the book, because I think it's important. Because everybody else is like, I want to flip through that chapter and I want to go straight to, cracking WPA2. Who cares? Nobody cares. You hire 1 trillion people to crack WPA2. My problem is I don't have anybody who could actually set up a proper risk management framework, whether it be NIST or ISO or whoever's you use, and can hire the right people and put in the right organization and infrastructure and work with HR and work with management to get this stuff set up and running. And that's really, really important. Security Plus, they put an entire domain on SY0501. An entire domain is just risk management. 601, I'm not sure what I can tell you. I'll say this. CompTIA makes risk management look smaller, but it really ain't. I'm going to leave it at that. So it is kind of cool, Bill. I kind of like, understanding, how do you deal with risk, How do you mitigate it? Do you avoid it? Do you ignore it? Do you pray? It's big parts of IT risk management, and it's certainly on the Security Plus. And more importantly, any other security-based certification you take past this is going to go into a lot more detail. And so cool. I mean, like, for example, everything that there is about IT security is the establishment of security controls. That's it. You put all the security controls around your infrastructure to mitigate risk. And what's a security control? Well, a security control would be, we will require all users to use complex passwords. Boom. That's a security control. Now, then you have a procedure where somebody's like, hey, Mike, go ahead, go into the server and set up password complexity. But it's the applying of the security controls which is really the important part. Once I have this security control as a infantryman in the IT security world, then I generate a procedure which then goes ahead and actually does it. Fascinating, huh? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with the SY0601. Very interesting. Jake the Plug. Who are you, Jake the Plug? Should I know who you are? Hang on. Michael Smyer just let me know how much RAM we got in our virtual machine. 64 gig. Yeah, not 128. Yeah, performance-based questions. Thank you, Linux. Linus retirement tips. I should be checking you too. During the encryption series of his, try using PGP keys to communicate with another IT person or encrypt some of your personal files and see what it looks like. Oh, you're talking to Bill Fosk. I guess I missed a question. Jake, I'm going to gamble that you've answered that question suitably for him. All right, I'm writing your guys' names down. Jake the Plug. You're going to have to explain that name to me, brother. And then Linus, not Linux, Linus, retirement tips. Do you guys have channels? I'm going to check y'all out. Watch it be like Linus retirement tips has like 75 million viewers and everybody's like, you never heard of Linus retirement tips? I get in trouble all the time. How many different certs do you have, Mike? And do you still take any new ones? I got a lot of certs. I mean, how far back do you want me to go? Active certs? Not very many active certs, to be honest with you. CompTIA A+, Net+, CASP, I think is still active. IT Fundamentals. I don't remember. I take anything that I'm writing training materials for, I make sure that I have that certification. During my, this is from Linus, hello Vimal, Linus retirement tips. During my A+ core I took a few days, I got a performance-based question telling me to rebuild the boot mugger. I was really frazzled. Boot rec rebuild BCD, that's right, man. Nigel, Mike, I'm studying for CCNA at the moment and I'm struggling so much with subnetting. What's the easiest way to learn subnetting? Well, Nigel, we had a pretty good class here 2 weeks ago on subnetting. So actually, Nigel, one of the things I would do is go through the Total Seminars channel and find my subnetting discussion. You know, the trick with subnetting is people never understand why they're doing it. Because we live in this world of NAT, and everybody thinks that all little internal networks are all private IP addresses, but that's not the real world. In the real world, if you want real public-facing servers mainly, you're going to have real public IP addresses for them. And that's why we subnet, because you call up somebody and you go, I need... So a lot of times they'll do this. Like for example, you'll want an IP address for the WAN side of your router, but then you also a lot of times I like having another IP address for like where I can put forward-facing servers in, something like that. And so you end up needing. You can't just use DHCP anymore. People also get confused with that. You're like, well, no, Mike, I understand DHCP is for my little local area network to give host addresses. No, man, DHCP works up in the big internet as well. And so your little home router is a DHCP client on the WAN side. Yeah, I know, it's a DHCP server on the LAN side passing out, but it's also a DHCP client. And so a lot of times people want to type in static IP addresses and stuff like that, which is all very cool. And you can do that. And then, but if you want to get it more than one and you want them to be static, all of a sudden you're going to say, someone's going to come up and go, okay, you got a 14, 22, 16. Can I do this in my head without sounding like a complete idiot? 246 network with a WAC 30 subnet. WAC 30. So it's not a WAC 24. It's not 255.255.2550. It's like a WAC 30. And you're like, holy, how can I get that? And how many IP addresses do I get for that? Those are the kind of questions you actually get on Net Plus. The Security Plus doesn't really hit it hard, but it's Net Plus. And Security Plus just assumes you have that stuff in your head. So it really goes for it. So do me a favor then. Nigel, watch my subnetting video. And if you have more questions, we're always glad to repeat stuff. Just, here, send me an email. And here we go, one more time. Mike's email address. Send me an email, either one of those addresses, and you need to ask me, what do you need to know about subnetting? Okay? So, what's your question? What is subnetting? Come on, you haven't read enough. You got to ask me details, What part do you not understand? Where do things start to break down? And then I can help more. Adam Topher, I'm getting ready to take the first test. How much time do you give between the two tests? I usually traditionally I've always said 0. For decades, I always told people, take both tests in one sitting. Literally schedule one, walk away, smoke a cigarette, or whatever people do these days that's politically correct. And then come back and take the other exam. The reason I said that is because traditionally there's been tremendous overlap between the two A+ exams. But that seems to have faded out with the 1001, 1002. That seems to be a better separation. I would still say that you don't want to wait too long. I would study for both of the exams simultaneously, because there'll be information that's on one exam, but then the rest of it's in the second exam. So how to plug in a SATA drive might be on the 1001, but partitioning and formatting is going to be on the 1002. So in your studying, are you going to take a drive and plug it in and just stop? No, of course not. You're going to go in and you're going to partition it and format it. So you've actually already studied for 1001, 1002. Are you going to go in and set up a basic wireless network and configure an SSID and not do any WPA2 encryption? Of course not. You're going to do it all. So you study for them simultaneously. I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks separation, with the understanding you're already studying for both anyway. It's hard to not study for them simultaneously. Esteban Gonzalez, there's a good Irishman there. Hey Mike, love your content on Udemy. Thank you. Our corporate office are all taking one or more of your published courses. Well, Esteban, thanks, man. Appreciate that. So also do keep in mind, Esteban, just because you are nice enough to show up today, we are offering 50% off all of our super bundles and our practice questions. Super bundles are videos, which are the same videos that you're getting on Udemy, okay? But we just throw in the videos and the performance simulations and the practice questions. Or if you just want practice questions, you can get those. All you have to do is go to www.totalsem.com. And when you're checking out, type in MMLive7 and you will get that deal. Business. Mike's talking like a DJ for some reason. All right. Checking for questions. Linus, you've only got 10 subscribers. Good for you, man. I don't look at YouTube as anything more than, well, it's convenient for doing live shows, but I don't pursue subscribers on YouTube. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I've got a little over 12,000 between followers and connections there. And I hate Facebook. I hate Facebook. And I don't have a personal Facebook. I got some corporate stuff. I don't mess with it. Trying to find. Holly Jackson likes the word sizzle. That is a very big word. You'll hear that in the publishing industry a lot. Like McGraw-Hill, if I'm talking about some certification, there's going to be some executive, editor, whatever. They're going to be like, well, we don't hear a lot of sizzle on it. So here's a hilarious story. So here I am. I've sold millions and millions of books for McGraw-Hill. And it's been a long time I've been selling books, right? Mike Meyers, popular author, right? So I went up to my acquisitions editor. We'll just call him Mr. Green. And I was like, hey, man, I've got this idea for a novel. And he was like, nope. I'm like, but I'm Mike Meyers, popular author. He goes, yeah, you're popular author for like IT books. But the moment you want to start thinking you're going to write like the next version of Mr. Robot or something like that, you're going to go to Penguin or Viking, and no, not going to happen. It was very frustrating for me. I wrote some interesting short stories. I never developed them past that. Adam Topher. I've taken the practice exam mics on the SEM site and gone from marginally failing to marginally passing. Wayne's World, how would you differentiate between an ACL and a firewall issue, and what would you use to figure out where the problem is? It's an interesting question. How would you differentiate between an ACL and a firewall issue? Gosh, Wayne, I guess I'd almost ask you to give me a more detailed question. So Wayne, I'm assuming that you're kind of separating the idea of stateful versus stateless firewalling. So to me, a stateless firewall is where you punch in the access control list. Nobody can get on after 5 o'clock. We're going to block this port. We're going to block this website. That kind of stuff, which to me is stateless. Whereas a stateful, to me, is going to be, how do we avoid, DDoS or intrusion prevention tool sets, something like that. Wayne, I'd have to. You need to ask me a more detailed question. I'm fascinated to answer that, but I think I'd need more from you, brother. Sorry, man. I hate to do that to you guys, but AWS is what they're looking for. A lot of people are looking for AWS. It's very, very true. Reading questions. Get them, Adam. Get your A+ and Net Plus. Jimmy, there you are. Why you do this to me, Jimmy? Boy, if you know what movie that was from, I'd be real impressed. Hey, Mike, installed VirtualBox to practice using Ubuntu Linux. Cool. And it initially crashed with system errors. After I restart the system, it loads without a problem. Any suggestion as to why? No, not a clue. And when you say it crashed, did the Ubuntu crash within the VM? Did VirtualBox shut down the VM and you got VirtualBox errors? Even if you answered that question for me, I wouldn't have an answer. This is Jimmy, this is a classic example of a question that you're going to get me to say, I don't know. But what I would do is, if the errors were I would probably go over to VirtualBox, which has a really good support group and a good forum in there, and I would say Ubuntu, VirtualBox, crash, why? Something like that. And that is where I would search the answer. There you go. Mike Meyers saying the most magic words that you can ever hear another tech say. I don't know, but I know where to go to get the answer. Toloet, ever tried Tai Chi? No. Although I am going to go to a chiropractor for the first time in my life. There's another thing that I've always thought was kind of witch doctory. We're chiropractors, but my trainer, I've been having a little shoulder issue, and my trainer's like, oh, you got to go to this chiropractor. I'm going to give it a try. And I'll probably come back, be all like, oh my God, chiropractic is amazing. Oh, Jimmy, the thing you got to remember with VirtualBox is that you really have to install the extension tools. So go back to the same place where you downloaded VirtualBox, and on that same download page, it's a little bit down, but make sure that you get the VirtualBox extensions. Yeah. And that'll allow all that to happen. When will fiber optic CPUs come out? I don't know. Get IT to work with HR? Bro, yeah, I know. It does happen. Edward Fobol. Hey, Edward. What was your Hurricane Harvey disaster recovery like? I wasn't here. I was up canoeing in southern Missouri, you know, and we had actually planned, this is almost 3 years ago, right? So we had actually planned to go up for the eclipse. By the way, guys, there's another eclipse is coming in about 4 or 5 years. It's going to go through central United States this time. And if you've never been in a path of totality in an eclipse, you owe it to yourself to do that because it's an amazing experience. If you're outside the path of totality, it never really gets all the way dark. But in the path of totality, it gets dark, man. And you understand intellectually what's going on, but deep in your lizard brain, there is something saying, we must take off our clothes and dance to bring back the sun. And it's like, I didn't do that. I was hanging out with a bunch of Southern Baptists, but it's a trip to actually be in the path of totality. And so that's where I was when Harvey came up. And I called some of my friends and like, don't even bother coming back to Houston. My house did fine. You got to keep in mind, like most Houston houses, you know, here in Texas, we do little things that y'all don't think about. Like, for example, when we put in our sheetrock, most of you guys put your sheetrock like that. We put ours like this. And the reason is if we get flooded out, then we just have to pull out one row of sheetrock. So, and like on first floors, you're never going to see carpeting. It's all going to be tile and things like that, stuff that can recover real easy. Nobody ever puts down really fancy, what do you call the base, the base molding that goes around the bottom. You know, mine's just 1x4s. Because if this stuff tears up, I don't want to spend a lot of money getting it repaired. So we were fine. I had a person staying here when I wasn't here, and they were able to keep the rain out. Really, you know, I keep like a 4-foot squeegee and mops and things like that. And there was a little water came in, but we were able to hold it back. Elvis has entered the building. Elvis Quadros. Hello, sir. You add so much life to your videos with examples. Thanks. Helps me learn better. No worries. Want to know if there are any other good webinars, articles, websites that I should be following and reading to grow my knowledge? Oh, Elvis, I'm in trouble, man, because I promised on Wednesday I'd start building a list of websites I go to. And the reason I didn't do it is because I realized that I'm not finding myself going to the same websites as much as I used to. You know, I can say things like Ars Technica, I can say stuff like Tom's Hardware, but what really ends up happening for me, The Verge, I go there sometimes, but usually I end up just searching for stuff because I'll hear something, and whoever has that information I go to. But I'll still put something together, I promise. I know I said I would, I did, and I haven't, but I will. Terrence Tech. Hey, Terrence. Is the SI601 like the 501 on steroids? No. I think the SY0601 definitely reflects, I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm under an NDA, but I will tell you that it does a good job coming up to speed on things that may have come up fairly recently or things that are becoming more popular. It has certainly taken a lot out that maybe wasn't as important as they might have thought it was. But overall, I'd say it's maybe a 10% overall change, if that. All right, Scott, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Anthony Cole, Pat Port Address Translation. Are you asking me a question, Anthony? Do you want me to talk about that? I think we could do that real quick. Don't make me out to be a liar. Still love the sound of my new mechanical keyboard. You want to do a little thing on PAT, or Port Address Translation version of NAT, right? All right. I think I can do this. Dun, 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 dun. Oops, I knew that might happen. Let me get this queued up a little bit better here, guys. Just want to make this a little bit more visible. Sorry, guys, I wasn't quite prepared to do this, but it's a good question. And if you bear with me a little bit just to tweak this up a little bit, I didn't think I was going to be doing PowerPoints today. All right, that's good enough. Let's make this work. All right, so what I got here is a typical in-house network. And this router is NAT capable, okay? And the network ID for this entire little LAN is 192.168.55 WAC 24. Remember what WAC 24 means, kids? That's 255.255.255.0, right? 255 is 8 ones, correct? So 255 times 3 is 24 ones followed by 8 zeros, WAC 24, okay? Okay. All right. And this is the IP address on the WAN side of my router. And I want to get to this guy way over here, right? Okay, so in order for me to get to him, what's going to happen here is he's listening on port 80, okay? So this guy right here is going to start creating an IP packet. And that IP packet is going to have the destination IP address. It's going to have the source IP address. Now I want you to look at this source IP address real close, folks. It's a 192.168. Why is this happening? My directorial skills are terrible. It's a 192.168 address. It's a private IP address. It can't be on the internet. So we're going to have to do something to this to allow this outgoing IP packet to even get on the internet, okay? All right, so let's keep going here. So we're going to send the destination port, it's port 80, and then he's going to generate an ephemeral destination port number. That second port number, people are always so, we always talk about memorizing port numbers. That's great, memorizing port numbers, but really all we're doing is memorizing quite a few of the first 1,024 ports, the well-known ports. You can have port numbers up to 65,535, 36, I don't remember, 36. And just as you need an IP address to and an IP address from, you need a port number to and a port number from. The IP address gets the packet to the right computer. The port number gets the packet to the right application. Come on, you ever sat there and you looked and you've got like 3 tabs open, you're running Firefox, you got 3 tabs open, yet all 3 tabs seem to be running great. How does the computer know to get the right data to which one of these 3 tabs in your browser? And the answer is it's that return port number, that ephemeral port number. So every session gets an ephemeral port number to make sure that when the packet comes back, it gets to the right application. All right, so then we're going to have some data. Now, first thing is we got to get rid of that address right there. So what happens is that this address gets sent to the router, okay? Well, this packet gets sent to the router. And then the router, once it comes into the router, he's going to see that packet. And the first thing he's going to do is put a copy of that header information. He's going to store this because he's going to need that later. And then what he's going to do is he's going to yank out the private IP address and he's going to replace it with the WAN address. Do you see that? Boy, it keeps wanting to show the picture of that thing. That's really what NAT is all about. And this version of NAT we're talking about is called port address translation, because based on the port, it's going to be able to translate and, more importantly, get it back once it comes back in. When he can take his WAN IP address off, he's going to have to remember, and he does it by port numbers, which internal IP address to put back. Get the idea? So that's what we talk about. PAT is by far the most common type of NAT. When most people mention NAT, they mean PAT. It's just, in fact, PAT is so common that most people just say NAT. There are other versions of NAT. For example, there can be static NAT. And a static NAT would be used like with servers, where you would have, each server would have its own internal IP address, and then you'd have a router with like 4 public addresses on it, and there would be a static fixed connection between those two. It doesn't look at port numbers, it looks just that. It's be used for round robin, load balancing, some rudimentary firewall, HTTPS preload, so it does the HTTPS handshake, doesn't have to put that on the server, stuff like that. But usually when you're talking about NAT, it's PAT. All right. All right, so I'm supposed to remember this PowerPoint presentation from a few weeks ago. All right, so, and then it goes out, I believe. Yep, there, it goes out. And then when it comes back, you'll see that it's basically reversed everything. You got that? Now, because it knows this 4460, and it knows where it was coming from, that 102, because it has all this stuff memorized, then it's going to reference this, and it's going to just replace. Yeah, it's looking at all the port information. It knows it's good. So it yanks out its WAN IP address, puts the private IP address back in, and then sends it out. So PAT is NAT. How's that? Why do I sound like a Dr. Seuss book all of a sudden? No, Pat, no, that is not NAT. NAT, NAT, have a NAT. Have a NAT with brown and black. Port address. Anthony, I hope that helped. If it didn't, say something. Sherry Yates, does your 50% off include the Total Sims Interactive Sim? Does it? In the Super Bundle, it does. Nigel, go to May 14th video. There you go, Dr. Quinn. Thank you, sir. Do you hold a certification in Linux? Not currently, no. I'm going to say something that's just heretical, but I'm going to say it. I'm not a big fan of Linux. I turn to Linux when I need to do something specific. For a lot of IoT things, I'll use it. Most routers are some form of Linux these days, if not pfSense or something like that. I am comfortable enough in Linux to do what I need to do. I don't think that I would have a problem getting Linux Plus or LPI. I just never bothered taking them. Mike's, does TotalSem plan going into other cybersecurity certs? Which other ones, Nick? I mean, we do Security Plus, we do CYSA, we do CASP. So we're sticking mainly with the CompTIA ones. CompTIA makes it pretty easy for trainers to make materials. That's not true for a lot of other people. Certified Ethical Hacker is a pain in the rear end. So, yeah. But Nick, the trick always is ask for something. You just might get it. Brenda Banks. Hi, Mike. I upgraded from Vista. Really? Vista to Windows 10 on my custom-built PC, and my graphics card does not show up in my device manager. So Brenda, my first huge panic would be if you have a Vista computer, it's probably really, really old, and there's always question marks about graphics support. So if your graphics card isn't showing up, that probably means you're booting off your primary graphics. When you go into Device Manager, do you see something under there where it says, I see a card, but it's unrecognized? That would be the one thing. I would consider going into your system setup, resetting your boot order to force it to go to the card, trying that. I would, I wouldn't do that. No, I'll take that one back, because you can still get the card configured properly even if you're running on the onboard graphics. See, the reason I'm saying you're running on onboard graphics is because you say you're getting an error that says it doesn't recognize it, which means you're looking at some screen that's showing some kind of output. So I'm gambling that you're talking about a thing, but it doesn't show up in your device manager. Okay. Make sure the card's in good order. I mean, was it working good earlier with Vista? Check the make and model of the card and verify that it does work with Windows 10. Just type in the make and model of the card and then type in Win 10. There is older hardware, so there's a lot of older hardware that really got left behind. I had to replace an entire, it was a USB 3.0 motherboard, and the chipsets just didn't work with Windows 10. Didn't work. There was no waiting for an update. They're like, nope, we're not going to work on that. So we used to call it the hardware compatibility list. I think it's just called Windows Store now. Verify that the card is working. That would be verify the card's supported. I'll assume the card was working because it was working under Vista. And then once you know what the card is, I mean, it's probably going to be an NVIDIA or an AMD, right? So you can get the reference drivers directly from NVIDIA or AMD and attempt an installation that way. That might light it up. But those would be my first quick guesses. Oh, Tolowit, I can't do any more projects. I can't do it. I can't do it. Regina Adams. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Check it. A+, Net+, Security+, Server+. Dude, you're out of control. Amazing. Unbearable suffering. Also, unbearable suffering. Why does anyone need to know anything if the answer to all questions is Google? No. The pathway to all questions is Google. The problem is making sure you understand that stuff. If people don't, it's like, well, I'm having problems with, setting up PIPA addresses. And yeah, I might go to Google to get the answer, but if I don't even know what a PIPA is, how am I going to find where I go? All that kind of stuff. You have to know enough to even ask the questions. So, yeah. Elvis, you got it. It was from The Exorcist. Elvis, Adam got it too. Jimmy got it too. God bless you guys. Oh man. No. PvP boy. So in the 1002 it talks about image recovery like system image in Windows or DD in Linux. What is an image? An image is very simply a bit for bit copy of a partition. So it's not just glorified compressed folders. It would be boot information. It would be all kinds of stuff. About the only thing it's not going to have in there is swap files, because most these things know not to copy those, or the files left in it open so they can't copy them anyway. But no, so when they're talking about an image, like an ISO image, so like when you're using VirtualBox, you're making your VMs, instead of having the installation media, you have it installation ISO. That is a bit-for-bit copy of the installation media, whether it be Ubuntu or Windows or whatever it might be. Will NetBIOS be on the test? Sort of. Not sure which test you're talking about. If you were saying Net Plus, my answer would be that the vestiges of NetBIOS, which still exist in every brand new Windows computer today, those vestiges will be discussed. Make sure you know your port numbers, so it's not just 445, right? 137, 138, 135, 137, 139, make sure you know those port numbers, that kind of stuff. Can you explain what ICMP is? Awet Timi. Can you explain ICMP? Sure. Here's where you have to, Internet Control Message Protocol. Internet Control Message Protocol. Oh my gosh, Mike actually got an abbreviation right off the top of his head. Sure, I can explain ICMP. So there's a lot of stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes on TCP/IP networks. And, we call it TCP/IP, but we really should have called it TCP/IP, TCP, UDP, ICMP, IGMP, and even more over IP. But 95% of all the traffic that's on the internet is TCP traffic. So remember, TCP traffic is going to be like, for example, HTTP, HTTPS is TCP traffic. And in those, what you have is it's connection oriented. There's an initial handshake, a connection, hello, hello, okay? It supports lots of packets. So if you're to bring down a web page, you might need tens of thousands of packets because you're watching a video or something. It can handle that, no problem. And it closes properly, goodbye, goodbye, that kind of a thing. Run netstat -A, and you can see a lot of that stuff going on, where it says listening or connected and stuff like that. That's TCP. UDP is, there is no actual handshake with UDP. So what would be a good UDP? Trivial FTP would be an example of that. So with a UDP protocol, these are ones that don't really care that there is a handshake, that there's somebody on the other side. It would count on other things to just resend or to verify something wasn't there. So you have TCP, you have UDP, and that's a big chunk of it. ICMP is a different animal. ICMP is, for example, like there's no port numbers with ICMP. It doesn't need them. ICMP has like their own thing. Probably the most famous ICMP is called ping. And an ICMP packet has a very specific function. It only does one thing. And ARP is ICMP. It's all these little background things you don't really use very often. And they're one packet only. So that's, you'll never have like lots of ICMP packets. Like if you run ping in Windows, it'll run it 4 times. It's because it sends 4 packets out. So ICMP is the little background cleanup and utility people. They're the house elves. What are those things from Harry Potter? Yeah, you don't see them very often. Don't give them a sock. So that's ICMP. I can't believe you guys all got that Exorcist reference. There's old people on here. I know there's some old people out there. Thank you, Unbearable Suffering. Yeah, Anthony, I think you have to have hypervisor turned on, off, or on in BIOS for VirtualBox. Yeah, just so you know, there's 2 versions of VirtualBox out right now. There's a 6.0, which is great, which doesn't require the VTX virtualization support on your chip, and 6.1, which is a little bit more smoother, faster, but don't put it on a machine that doesn't support virtualization. Look, if you've bought a CPU in the last 3 or 4 years, the chances of it not supporting virtualization are pretty small. What you do have to watch out for is you're going to have to go into your system setup and verify that your VTX or virtualization, they got about 1 million names for this, make sure that it's turned on, or you'll get lots of interesting errors. But Anthony Cole, you're absolutely right. It didn't work for you, Jimmy. I didn't think that was it, but you're absolutely right. It can't hurt. Yeah, sure. Why not? Anthony, not a problem. Yeah, you guys are always welcome to answer each other's questions on here. I never have a problem with that. The only downside you got to be careful is that if you guys answer questions, a lot of times I won't answer it, especially if I can read quickly and look like the answers are hitting it the right way. What key switches are on your new key? What key switches? What keys switches? I'm not sure what you're asking. I haven't done any customization to it yet. It's got some fairly interesting programmatic things, but I haven't really bothered with it. It's very pretty though. Look, look, look. Look at my new. And it's an Inland, which is not usually a brand I would go for. To me, they're kind of a cheaper, but the price was right. And I don't know about you guys, but have you been to a computer store during the coronavirus? Yeah, go ahead and try to buy a webcam. Good luck with that. Regina Adams, my name is Andre L. Adams. Andre, I'm never going to remember that, man. Sorry. So PAT would be compatible to flow label and IPv6. No. IPv6 doesn't use NAT. I mean, there's like this awful version of NAT, but the beauty of IPv6 is that it doesn't need it. If you have a computer with an IPv6 address on it, it's public. It's public address. I mean, NAT has never been a firewall, okay? I mean, it acts firewall-y-esque, but that's not its function. And so people start to freak out. They're like, wait a minute, Mike. So you're telling me with IPv6, and all of a sudden I got this 2600 colon address or something like that? Are you telling me that my computer is on the internet? Yeah. And if somebody had your address, they can get to it. So, but the problem is like, you know, even just trying to scan something. So let's just say that I know, you know, I don't know how far you guys are going to go into IPv6. So IPv6 has a fixed WAC64 subnet, okay? And it's 128 bits, it's a WAC64. So that means you have 2 to the 64th power. So like with IPv4, I can, if I'm on an internal network, I can run scanners and I can go from 192.168.55.1 to 192.168.55.254. Got it? I can do that in a minute or two, depending on what type of scanner I'm using. Good luck with IPv6, because you even in a tiny little local area network, you have 2 to the 64th power addresses. So just to try to scan an internal IPv6 network is virtually, it's impossible. And so that doesn't really come into play. IPv6 has a whole different methodology about addressing. Surprisingly, in my opinion, none of the CompTIA exams address IPv6 with the academic rigor that I think it should. Recognizing IPv6 addresses, you know, knowing what a loopback is, knowing a network address from a link local address, what is a temporary address, what is a EUI64 versus a MAC48, you know, those are basic things. But you guys want me to do an IPv6 class? We could do that. It's going to go outside the scope of CompTIA certs, I need to warn you, but it's cool. You need to understand how Slack works, you know, how DHCP v6 works, you know, that kind of stuff. But we could do that, but I'm going to need a lot of people saying, yeah, Mike, I want to do that, because it's a big topic, and it really is outside of CompTIA certs to an extent. Good, Anthony, I'm glad that helped. Mr. Verma, what could be the best sources to practice log questions for Security Plus? Honest to Pete, the log questions to me in Security Plus are so wildly generic that if you take the time to read the question and what they're looking for, and if you understand what a port number and an IP address is, and you know, a basic understanding of HTTPS handshake and stuff like that, you don't need to know any log files. Not really. You know, what time did something happen? You see where I'm coming from? log files are generic or pretty much log files. And the question that they ask you on the exam will give you a clue as to what you need to be looking for. And I don't care what the log file is. In fact, the log files that are done on Security Plus are generic. It's not like this is an syslog or something like that. So it doesn't matter. Just understand what log files would store, and then read the question. It's going to be asking things like, when would the failed logon happen? Oh, I'm going to need time and I'm going to need a logon failure. That is not a real CompTIA question. But people really freak out about log files, especially on Security Plus, and I find those questions to be just downright trivial, to be honest with you. Oh, okay. I'm teasing people about Vista machines, sorry. Where did you go? Where did you go? Adam, I built a Vista machine in 2008. Does that qualify as really, really old? Yes. To me, in the IT world, anything that's 3 years old is old. I mean, it's just been like that forever. I liked Vista. I'm not going to get in this argument. Vista's not on any CompTIA exams anymore. I liked Vista. The problem was Vista was picky about drivers, and that tortured people. Brett, do you have NVIDIA on the motherboard? Yeah, you probably got to consider getting reference drivers. I have an A+ and Net CE, but they are expired. How much does that really matter? When I take this is from Bill Foskett. One of the things, I'm going to ask you guys to do something. I have a very small personal page here on YouTube, and I want you to type in Mike Meyers. Don't do it now, but write this down. Check out Mike Meyers' 10 Commandments, Bill. One of the 10 Commandments is how you grow with your certs. In my opinion, most people should not want to re-up their certs. The reason for that is because you've moved on. You've moved into Cisco. You've moved into Microsoft. You've moved into Certified Wireless Networking Professional. You started to go into, GISA security. And as you progress in your career, these more basic certs kind of fall off, and it's when you start going from 40 a year to 110 a year, and they're not important. For some people, it's very important. Somebody like me who's always creating A+ materials, it's very important to me that I keep my applicable certs up. If you're an instructor teaching A+, I think it would be important. If your job directly points to this, then it would be important. If your boss wants you to do it, that would be important. I know CompTIA would love for you to re-up every 3 years, but personally, if your career is progressing, then I don't think it's necessary. And I should be careful here. There's plenty of people who just get like an A+, Net+, and never get anything else, and they have fine careers. But they're probably going to be system builders. They're going to be driving in a van, going to people's homes to fix stuff. So in those situations, they would very much want to update. And their careers are progressing fine, thank you. Some of the richest people I know in this industry drive around in vans. It's crazy. Yeah, your choice. So Bill, you would have to, I want to read your question. How much does that really matter? I think I answered that one. And when I take and pass Security Plus, does that bring the whole set current again? Sometimes, Bill, there is part of the certification CEs, the continuing education units, where if you take a later cert, it will update your more basic certs. You're going to have to go to CompTIA, www.comptia.org, and check that out. and get back to me because it's been a while since I've looked at it. They may have dumped it for all I know. Gustavo Marata. See, you guys with Latin names, I can handle that. That's never a problem. Yo hablo español para gringos solamente. Yo tengo un mustacho muy guapo. Splitting my time these days on the Network Plus and SAACO1. Yeah, Tom Carpenter's a good guy. I like Tom. I've known Tom Carpenter a long time. Long time. Gustavo, just got email from Kathy with my prize last Monday. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I got to tell you, we're on some of these contests, because I was going to that ThinkGeek GameStop site, and boy, they got a bunch of rules that make it. I just like it because they have fun toys. I mean, where else can you get caffeinated soap on a rope, for crying out loud? But we may have to start doing other stuff. Oh my goodness, what time is it? It's 3:45. Do you guys want to do a contest today? Thomas Robinson, do you know about optical computing in the future will change? I don't know anything about it, Thomas. I apologize, man. Yeah, so Andre, the only thing, you got to be careful when you're, just put your certifications at like the bottom of your resume. It's a mistake to sit here and go, look, I've got an A+. Because that's like saying, look, I know how to dial a phone. I mean, these are assumed things, and it's just a checkbox for them. The only thing that those certifications do, they're not going to get you a job. Certifications just put your name at the top of a stack of resumes. That's all they've ever done. And a lot of companies have requirements for them. I got to be honest with you. On a lot of companies where it says like A+ required, if you went into them and said, look, I've got the 1001, I'm working on the 1002, I'll have it in a month or so, they'd probably still hire you. It freaks me out how often people look at job requirements and go, well, I'm not qualified. You're probably qualified, just go for it. If you're missing a few things here and there, who cares, Just go for it. Sandro, you like my keyboard? I like it too. I like the clickety-clickety noises. PvP boy, I think this might be more than what the A+ is looking for, but how does CCMP work with WPA2? Oh, goodness. CCMP? I think you're talking about with AES, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So if you take a look at a complicated, powerful block cipher program like AES, the problem with any block cipher is that it takes a chunk of data and then encrypts it, okay? So let's say you were encrypting a photograph of me, a still photograph. The problem is that because you're using the same key, every 64-bit chunk that starts the same is going to come out the same. So you'll end up having like the pixels might be weird colors, but you can still get the image from it. So with block ciphers, what we do is we change the key on an ongoing basis. Usually there's a lot of different ways to do it, but one of the ways, CCMP, is where it uses some of the previous key to update the key for the next 64-bit block. So when you're saying CCMP, PvP boy, what you're telling me is you're using WPA2. WPA2 most certainly does use AES. Sandy, are you on television? Okay. Bye. That's Sandy. So CCMP is one of many different ways to tweak AES block encryption. I'm worried that you're thinking about, oh, God bless it. No, you're not. It's CCMP. Yeah, CCMP is just, and I don't think they're going to ask. God bless it. There's something else that's going on in my brain, and we did a big wireless thing here a couple of weeks ago and covered that. Hang on. I gotta look it up. Yeah, I'm going to Wikipedia. It was something that had to do with 802.11. Okay, no, I was worried that you might have been confusing things with like OFDM and digital's DSSS, FHSS. Those are modulation types, and you're not, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. So to answer your question, PvP boy, CCMP is one of many different ways we can tweak AES. AES is definitely part of the WPA2 standard. No, what? You missed you asked for ICMP and then you walked out? Dude, all of these are recorded. How far are we into this? We're at 350. So you're going to kind of do a little search. Sorry, man. Thank you, Adam. Geraldine, 10 Commandments of PC Tech with Mike Meyers. Yes. And Geraldine, while you're in there, there's a funny video from like a long time ago. It's like me with hair. There's a video of me, Mike's perverted webcam. It's hilarious. It's G-rated. Tolowit, you've never missed one of these? Look at you. You're amazing. Mike, were you a hardware guy in the 90s? Yes. I was also a hardware guy in the 80s, and I started being a hardware kid in the 70s. Ever go up to Dallas for first Saturday of the month club for the big flea markets? Used to. I haven't been there in ages, Adam. We used to have a pretty good one here in Houston, too. Yeah, Andre, keep putting your name at the end. That is very helpful. Mike, do you watch launch? Yeah, I watch all the launches. I've got a buddy of mine who works in mission control and gets me in on all kinds of stuff. She actually helped us get T-shirts and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a NASA nerd big time. Kevin Lopez, would you recommend to apply for a help desk job without taking the A+, but mention to me you're still studying? Sure, I'd give it a try. You got to keep in mind, especially when you're first starting out, if you don't send out 100 to 150 resumes, well, I know the main reason people don't do that is because they're not willing to move. And that's a killer for people who are starting out in this business. You know, it's like, well, I got to stay in this town. I got to take care of my mom. My wife doesn't want to leave. The kids like the school. Man, when I start hearing that, it's like, really limits your opportunities. No, I am not. I don't know which chiropractor I'm going to go to. All right, guys, we just got a couple minutes left. We're going to do one competition, and then we're going to call it a day. So I got to think of a competition. You know, like I plan this stuff. Okay, I didn't even cover it. I was supposed to. I'm sorry. I should have covered check disk. I still want to do check disk because check disk has a lot of features to it that a lot of people don't play with. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a check disk question. Okay. This is, if you've done any of my study material on A+ or Net+, you know the answer to this one. So you guys ready? Here we go. Here we go. Everybody, whoever types it first wins. So the check disk command comes with lots of different switches, but there is one switch in particular that simply says if you actually want to repair stuff, you need to run this. It's distinct because when you run this check disk command, it won't run it until you reboot, okay? Now, check disk has had some fairly recent updates. So I'm not talking about anything that's happened like within last year. I'm talking the classic switch that we have put at the end of check disk since the 1997. What is that? I want you to write it out, okay? So the first person to type it in to the live chat, check disk space / what? See, PvP boy, I can't give it to you, man, because that is not the traditional way. Although I will tell you that it does work that way. Gustavo Marara, you are the winner. Gustavo, it is checkdish/F. Scott Jernigan, 42, you're hilarious. E. White, there is an argument for that, but again, I put in the criteria that I said it's just going to be for the classic one. The /R command is much more recent, and so I can't give it to you on that one. Sorry, man. There's nothing fair about this. But the nice part is I'll tell you what, if we got time, yeah, we got time, we'll do a second competition. What do you win? Who was it again? Gustavo? Okay, E. White, stick it out. You're going to get another shot here, brother. Gustavo, you're going to win a copy of one of my books. Gustavo, still, please tell me in the United States. Okay. You get either A+, Net Plus, or a Security Plus book from Mike Meyers. And what you need to do is contact Kathy Yale of our office. Scott Jernigan will type in Kathy Yale's email address. If by some chance, Gustavo, you are in Kazakhstan or something where shipping is very, very difficult, we'll either get you a Kindle book or something through Amazon.com. So we got you covered. All right? So check this /F. And again, Gustavo Marara, congratulations, sir. I got to think of another competition real quick. And again, it's going to be for a book. Okay. You guys ready for the next one? When a computer needs a MAC address and only has an IP address, what ICMP command is sent out? You don't do it. It's done automatically. What is the name of the ICMP command that is sent out to resolve a IP address to a MAC address? Go. First person to type it in. We covered this today. All right, we got them already. Nice try. Oh, God. Oh, nice try, no cigar. Whew, okay. The winner is Nice Try, No Cigar. Nice Try, No Cigar. You get a copy of any one of my either A+, Net Plus, or Security Plus book. Again, if you're in the United States, we can get it shipped to you. If you are in faraway places where things are difficult, we will work it out and get you a Kindle version of the book. But again, what you need to do, sir, let me make sure I got the right person. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Nice Try, No Cigar. What a great name. I love it. So Nice Try, No Cigar. You just have to send an email to Kathy Yale. That's Kathy Y at TotalSem.com. And we will get that book out to you. So Nice Try, No Cigar. What town are you in, man? You're in London too? Goodness sakes. This is amazing. What was all you Brits coming over here? What time? It's like 7 hours ahead from Houston to Greenwich Mean Time. So it's got to be past your bedtime. You got people need to go to bed. All right, guys, so that covers this for today. First of all, thank you so much. We had a great time. Remember that you get a deal, get 50% off our super bundles, which includes the videos, the practice questions, and the simulations. Or if you just want practice questions, those are also 50% off. Go to www.totalsem.com, make your order, and then type in the discount code of MMLive7 to take advantage of that great deal. So, you guys have an absolutely oh, okay, good. Just make sure I wasn't missing a critical message. You guys have been amazing as always. Have an incredible weekend. I'm going to be working on Security Plus all weekend and not coming up for air. And for the rest of you guys, we will see you Monday at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time. And until then, this is your little Uncle Mikey saying good night. Good night.